Shut up and sit down.
I'm Alex Valtrace, and this is the PreWatch thoughts for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I've always been a fan of the original series, though I've at least never seen the second one. Return is my favorite. I hated the Tim Burton remake. It was stupid, and the acting was bad. At least with the original, one could say that movies as a medium were younger. Burton is the king of the bad adaptation remake. I much liked Rise, the first one in this series reboot, but I'm a huge Lithgow fan, and that movie really let him stretch. Andy Serkis was, needless to say, perfect as Caesar, and I loved it. It was a great new take on the idea and decided to drop the time travel, with which I don't have an issue. I do have a problem with them naming the first one Rise and the sequel being called Dawn. I believe the sun dawns and then rises. So I'm having a lot of trouble keeping these two movies straight. I know they are trying to come up with new names, titles that haven't been used before in connection with the Planet of the Apes movies, but this is confusing. To be honest, I don't think they had a franchise in mind when they made Rise, but franchises are big business, so it makes a semblance of sense to make a new franchise off the back of an old franchise. It's better than making endless sequels and prequels. I'd rather hear entirely new stories. Star Wars! Sorry, something in my throat. And by that, I mean, don't make the original movie again and call it a new movie. Into darkness. Give me a new take on an old idea. Rise did this. It paid tribute to the original series without being the original series. Of the actors, I love Gary Oldman. I'll watch him in basically anything because he is always good. I don't have much to say about Kerry Russell. She's just never impressed me, but she's also never made me gag. Jason Clarke resides in the same area for me, though I'll never be able to get over Jenna shit. The director, Matt Reeves, did well enough on this movie to get the helm of the third sequel and also directed the very good Cloverfield, which has some writing issues, but overall, it's a better movie than most. This movie, however, has 3 writers: Mark Baumbach, Rick Jaffa, and Amanda Silver. Baumbach seems to be the king of bad sequels and reboots, having written on Live Free or Die Hard, The Wolverine, Race to Witch Mountain, and Total Recall. Jaffa and Silver have worked together on occasion, both of them having written The Relic, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and Jurassic World. They are also responsible for the writing of the third movie in this series, the Mulan remake, and Avatar 3. I liked Rise, so maybe the movie will be decent. Jurassic World teeter-tottered between high-minded ironic greatness and messy disaster of character creation and plot development. But there were other writers on Jurassic World as well, so I can hope that Jaffa and Silver were responsible for the more ironic turns. I mean, all I can have is hope. This is the PostView review for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. There is so much this movie does well that it is hard to point out one thing that was my favorite. The action was engaging, it is almost completely without tropes, the non-verbal communication was great, the pacing was a breeze, and they actually gave the most agency to the main character I've seen in a long time. The biggest detractors were some lame characterization of the humans and a complete waste of Gary Oldman. Being PG-13, I was sure that the action was going to be cut to hell and gone, a confusing mess that bores me. But it wasn't! Most of the shots for the action were longer and even at a distance, so I could tell what was going on. The nonverbal communication in this movie was amazing. So much storytelling without talking or signing. It was great, such as when Malcolm and Blue Eyes cross paths, and Blue Eyes considers killing him or taking him in, but Malcolm begs him not to, and then Blue Eyes decides to let him go. All without words. So good. This movie is a lesson in show don't tell storytelling. They also made it easy to recognize the different apes, and I even recognized the apes that were in Rise despite not having seen that movie in years, if not from their appearance then from their personalities.
Okay, we're going.
The reactions of the humans to speaking apes was so real, but I loved that talking out loud wasn't overused throughout the film. For example, one of the greatest moments in this movie is when Maurice has his one line. It was awesome.
Amazing!
You shut up.
One great thing about this movie is that it stands on its own. You do not need to see the first one to watch Dawn. There's also the great sort of Ender's Game reference that the humans will not forgive. The pacing in this movie is so well done. 1 minute of setup during the credits, 9 minutes showing how the apes live, then bam, inciting incident, then bam, humans' motivation, then bam, Caesar's motivation. Perfect. I think I've expelled all my gushing now. The humans were definitely the weaker part of the movie. I couldn't bring myself to care about their problems hardly at all. They just weren't interesting, much like the humans in Warcraft. With the exception of Malcolm, I cared about him. Good on them for hiring Gary Oldman, and his performance is great, but I question the need for his character. He was hardly impactful to the movie. I remember his line, "But I have to save them."
Saving the human race.
We have to save Dent! I have to save Dent!
In his voice, which is more to do with his performance, but also because we didn't get enough to believe it. Yes, there is the very touching scene with his tablet, but we don't get enough of this character to truly buy his motivations. Here comes the spoiler section, so jump ahead to get my rating. Some people make the argument that Koba's death is a trope because he falls to his death, but unlike many other movies, Caesar didn't go, "I'm going to give Koba another chance," and then Koba betray him again, and then through his own actions, Koba causes his own death. Instead, agency is given to Caesar.
Ape. Not kill. Ape. You are not ape.
He realizes that sometimes killing another ape is the best thing he can do for all of his kind. He makes a decision that is mature and, from a leadership standpoint, smart and responsible. That's freaking awesome and is hardly ever in movies, especially PG-13 films. I was sure in the first act that Malcolm was going to die. Absolutely certain. But he didn't. Another great subversion of tropes. There's some great irony in that the fight between humans and apes almost happened because Ash was nearly killed by a human, and then Koba killed Ash. Another great piece of irony was Koba quoting the main rule of the apes to Caesar, even though he had murdered apes and was directly responsible for the deaths of many others. I've been saying for years now that Toby Cabell has been trying to steal Andy Serkis's place in Hollywood, and this movie could have been called Cabell Literally Tries to Take Serkis's Job. But I believe the truth is closer to Serkis slowing down on actual mocap parts and running his mocap acting business instead. I tried to see if Cabell ever came up through Serkis's company, but couldn't find anything. movie knows how to movie. I know I'm gushing, but this is a great movie. There are some good parallels drawn between the ape community and the human community, between Caesar and Malcolm. And I love movies that do that, but the humans could have been better characterized. It's definitely better than Rise. I'm not hesitant to say that it is my favorite Planet of the Apes movie ever. With all its hard work, I give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. A mouthful to be sure, but knows how to show, not tell. This was PostView Review, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share, subscribe, click that bell, leave a comment below, visit my blog at empatheticwriter.wordpress.com, and follow me on Patreon for exclusive content and a shout out on a video. Merch, 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 merch. Yeah. Check out my new shop at cafepress.com/AlexofAllTrades for all kinds of products with my face on them.